Have you told your friends that you see ghosts?
Oh, absolutely not.
Gina Rodriguez returns in Not Dead Yet.
I'm back, baby.
Who is that?
Oh, she's the obituary writer.
And Brad Garrett joins the brilliant ensemble cast.
Titan, Maverick, Titan of all Mavericks. These are all words used to describe me.
Not Dead Yet. Season premiere. Tonight, 8:30, 7:30 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Of all the episodes on the Happy Families podcast that we do, my favourite one is this one. It's This Week in Parenting. Did you like that? This Week in Parenting.
Can you do it bigger?
Can I do it bigger? JR, I need your help with this. Are you ready? This Week in Parenting. No, that doesn't sound right.
Can you do it deeper?
Deeper.
This week in parenting.
How about that? That sounded very Triple M, didn't it? Yeah. Very Triple M. This Week in... Yeah, okay.
Can you do it lighter?
No, we're just going to get on with the podcast. We've got two big stories to talk about this week in parenting. The first one is the egg crack challenge. The second one is Spain, soccer, and kisses on the lips and being thrown over your shoulders and having your bum paraded in the air. Which one should we start with, Mrs. Happy Families?
Well, let's start with the egg challenge.
If you've spent any time on social media recently, you've likely seen the egg crack challenge. It sounds like some kind of contest, but it's actually a prank. It's going viral on TikTok because it has the element of surprise, and of course, it's something you can try on your own kids. But is it all harmless entertainment, or is it abusive to your child?
What is it with stupid quote-unquote challenges on social media? This one, parents get their unsuspecting toddlers, their 2-year-olds, their 3-year-olds, and they say, hey, let's bake a cake. And so as the toddler's standing on a stool and they're getting all the ingredients out, the parents pick up the egg that's got to go into the cake, and instead of tapping it on the bench to crack the egg, they whack it on their child's forehead and then drop the egg into the bowl to mix it up. And some of the toddlers laugh their heads off. They're like, what did you just do? The shock of it, and they see the smile on their parents' face and they crack up. It's very, very funny from that point of view if it works well. But the
ones I've seen, the toddlers actually literally sitting there bawling their eyes out while their parents laughing at them.
The overwhelming majority of them respond really, really badly.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Hey! That was a very nice.
According to Kelly Scott at the ABC, she's got an everyday article published at abc.net.au every day, a child development expert on the egg cracking challenge. But before we talk about that expert, which is really, really interesting, this is the history of it. The challenge apparently started between a married couple who have a history of pranking each other and posting the videos
Yeah, so
online.
I've seen that.
Okay.
I've seen that video.
And so the critical thing here is they implicitly have a consensual relationship where they prank each other. It's who they are and it's what they do. But even when you've got that knowledge, you can still get upset by a prank, right?
Yeah.
We're bringing in toddlers with no consent and whacking them over the head and with an egg, which hurts. I just don't think that it's a fair thing to be doing. So anyway, Dr. Kristen Summer is a developmental psychologist. She's from the Gold Coast and she has a PhD in child development. And she posts a whole lot of stuff on TikTok. She's got hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. And she decided to try the egg crack challenge with her toddler. Dr. Kristen Summer is an autistic mum and very, very good at what she does. And I want you to have a listen to what happens here.
Can I crack an egg on your forehead? No? Do you want to crack an egg on my forehead? You do? Okay. You ready?
So the toddler's
Would you like
smiling.
to try and crack it on my head?
So big right
You
now.
have to try. You got to whack it pretty hard, okay? Not hard enough. Try again. Oh, it's so hard. Ow.
Can I knock it on here?
You can knock it on there instead. Good job. Now you have to open it and put the egg inside.
And so Kristen goes through this process with her daughter and she does it so well. She's like, hey, let's try it. Would you like me to crack the egg on your head? And her daughter says no. And guess what Kristen does? She says, okay, why don't you try it on my head instead? And then she gets to have empathy because she's like, it's like that really hurt. Now, I did reach out to Kristen and ask if she could join us on the podcast, but unfortunately, at the time that we've recorded this, I hadn't heard back from her. But I think that there's a couple of really important things that we need to discuss. What questions does it raise for you?
The thing that I struggle with these kinds of challenges is that our kids look to us to be the source of all things good in their lives.
And a source of safety. Yeah.
And to kind of blindside our 2-year-old in an effort to have a bit of a laugh, because that's what it comes down to, right? We're actually just waiting to see what their response is so we can have a good laugh about it.
And then post it on social media and get a whole lot of likes. So I don't want to be like a wowser and a killjoy, but I'm really, really firmly opposed to this kind of prank because of the non-consensual aspect and because of the pain aspect.
If it was my 15-year-old, that's another story.
Maybe,
we could have some fun.
But I still think you want to just check in. Hey, do you want to do a fun challenge? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but are you okay with it? Let's go and bake a cake, and we'll find out as we go. Like when you're older, you get it. And if you've got that relationship where there's that implicit trust, you can do this. I was asked on Channel 9 by the Today hosts, is there going to be any long-term ramifications here? And I don't think that there is. Like a single instance of a parent doing something that's non-consensual and even a little bit unkind, it's probably going to be brushed off. I don't think there's going to be any erosion of trust because the relationship is built on goodness, right? So one drop of ugly in a great big pond of beauty, no one's going to notice that, if that makes sense. But if it's part of an ongoing pattern where we keep on dripping in these incidences of mistrust, these incidents of lacking any consideration, empathy, or checking in with consent, over time, that could absolutely create some problems. Now, I guess there might be some short-term distress, but we can overcome that with a big hug and make it all better. I guess if I was to sum up this whole egg crack challenge, it would be, what are you doing?
Just be kind.
Just be kind, yeah. And
I don't remember details, but I have some vivid memories of just being in spaces where adults were laughing at me. I'd done something, kind of silly, and the whole room erupted, and I just felt like so self-conscious because of what I'd done. And this is the same kind of thing, right? We've created a situation and we're now laughing at a child who's actually done nothing. They've just reacted.
Yeah, to something that was done to them non-consensually.
That's right. And I just think we need to be careful.
So if you have done this with your kids, you know what? I'm throwing a bit of shade your way. I actually am. Don't do it again. Say sorry. Make it up. I'm sure that if you're listening to this podcast, you're not the kind of person who would do that regularly. Or if you are, you're in a relationship where, because you do it regularly, you both prank each other. I mean, I saw something recently on social media where there's this kid and his dad, and they are constantly pranking each other. Like I'm talking a hose in the car, spraying dad with the hose as he's driving out the driveway, and sponges in the face and that kind of thing. Like this is clearly what their relationship is built on: pranks and humiliation and non-consensual beating each other up for social media kicks and giggles. And it works for them. I personally don't like it, but I'm not going to tell them to stop because they've built the relationship around that, and it seems to be actually quite fun and quite bonding for them. But as a general rule, I just don't think that that's what relationships work best on. Relationships work best on trust and involvement and connection, seeing and hearing and valuing the other person. Whacking eggs on people's foreheads doesn't tend to promote that kind of relationship.
So I shouldn't do that to you tonight?
Not until you check first. I'd actually be up for it if you checked and we could record it. I think it would still be funny, even if it was unexpected, because you know you're going to get a reaction out of me when it hurts and we get egg all over our faces. You should be prepared for an egg coming your way as well.
Number 2, you've primed us.
Yeah, so the second story is all about what's happened with the Women's World Cup. At the end of Spain's victory, when they're lining up and getting their medals and just absolutely nailing it. Luis, I don't speak Spanish, so please forgive me for my massacring of the pronunciation. Luis Rubiales has made headlines when he gave Spanish footballer Jenny Hermoso an unwanted kiss on the lips after her team won the FIFA Women's World Cup.
The president of the Spanish Football Federation has been slammed for this. Luis Rubiales kissed World Cup winner Jenny Hermoso on the lips during the medal ceremony. She said afterwards she did not enjoy that, but Rubiales rejected suggestions it was inappropriate.
Now, this has been blowing up for a couple of weeks. It's big news.
Yeah, this has been all over my social pages.
Okay, so where do you want to go with this? I mean, this is probably continuing the consent conversation, if anything.
I think so. We can go down a big black hole because there is a lot of things that come out of the things that we've read. But I think that consent has to be at the top of the list of things that we could talk about as parents.
Women's sport over the years has really been derogated. It certainly has not been elevated even close to where the men's games are, regardless of cycling or soccer or I don't care which.
I don't understand, though. I don't understand why we've belittled women in this arena.
Well, I'm going to play a clip for you here where Serena Williams is talking to David Letterman about what would happen if she took on Andy Murray on the tennis court.
I'm like, if I were to play Andy Murray, I would lose 6-0, 6-0 in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
This isn't about her competing against him.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the point that needs to be made.
Why can't we enjoy women's sport?
Yes.
For the very fact that they enjoy it and
Precisely.
they're good at it.
Exactly.
It's not a competition against men.
So a lot of people will say, well, the game is not as exciting because the men, they're faster or they're stronger or they hit with more power or they, depending on what sport you're talking about. But you know what? In the Women's World Cup, that ball was being kicked by women as hard as men kick it. In fact, I can't remember what the stat was, but I heard it on a podcast. The fastest kick in the World Cup was something like 112 kilometres an hour off the boot, which was the fastest this year, including against the men's game. Women play sport powerfully.
But again, this just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not watching a women's game wondering why they can't play like a man. I'm watching a women's game based on their merit.
And to watch them play at the top of their game.
So why are we competing?
We've moved away from the consent as a conversation. But I think part of the reason that we see, there are a number of reasons that we see so many kids drop out of sport, so many girls drop out of sport as they get older.
You shared this research with me, and it's staggering how many girls actually start off on the continuum of enjoying sports only to find themselves falling away in those early teen years.
Around about 12, 13, 14. So there are a handful of things. Number one, I think I've got a friend who's really anti the whole if you can't see it, you can't be it. He's basically saying, actually, people can be whatever they want and stop using that as an excuse. I think he's wrong. When you see somebody showing you that there is a path, when they are representing you, there's something profoundly powerful about that. And as girls see more women succeeding in sport and making careers, actually making a go of it, and many of these women are doing it as well as having babies, right? Like they're actually in families and they're raising kids while they're doing it. I'm watching my sister, who is a world-class dancer, and she has a child, but she's traveling the world in incredible dancing performances and doing that. And when girls see women representing femininity at the highest level and playing those sports, that gives them the belief that they should stick at it because they can do it as well. Up until now, there's just been such little representation. I think that's part of it. But you know something else that I came across from the Australian Sports Commission about why girls are dropping out of sport, other than the sexual abuse and the non-consensual stuff that's going on, the kisses on the lips or the pats on the bum that are not warranted, not requested, not wanted, just the inappropriate touching. It's this, and I'm quoting directly here, quote, research tells us girls start to drop out of sport at an alarming rate when they're in their 12 to 14-year age group. It shows also that the main reason for young girls abandoning sporting activities is to do with their poor self-image at a delicate stage of their transition into adulthood. Restrictive clothing, such as short, revealing skirts or heavy, unwieldy school uniforms, have been cited as reasons for girls' unwillingness to take the sports fields in lunch breaks. I remember just recently the Norwegian handball team in 2021 were fined because they wanted to wear shorts instead of the traditional bikini bottoms. Like, we have got a consent issue in women's sport, and the Spanish soccer issue has raised that and put it front and center. And by the way, this is not a first-time offence, right? Like, this sort of stuff is endemic in women's sport. But we've also got a body image issue where we expect that the girls are going to dress as sexual objects and look a certain way because of those archaic arguments that, well, it's not going to be as fun to watch the game. And so the sexism comes out. Well, I guess we should just make sure they look pretty instead. I've unfortunately read and heard that argument more times than I can count. And in 2023, I think that this Spanish sports saga is blowing the lid off these problems and putting them front and center. I reckon this is a great thing to talk about with our kids.
It's devastating that it's happened, but the fact that it is creating the stir that it is in society is hopeful. It's optimistic in that we're recognizing and seeing that this is not okay.
This week in parenting, we hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. I've loved chatting about this stuff. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. For more on making your family happier, you can visit us at happyfamilies.com.au. Don't forget, just a few days now until the Smells Like Teen Spirit Summit.